A powerful winter storm is brewing, and we're probably going to kaboom this Sunday into Monday. Let's break it down. This video is sponsored by ZoneWatch, the severe weather intelligence mobile app and web dashboard. ZoneWatch has an amazing centralized view of local conditions, weather alerts, and automated forecasts from all models, not just one. I know, I usually discourage apps for high-stakes weather conditions where human analysis is king. But for those other times when weather is more settled, I highly recommend this Weather Information Supercenter. For higher stakes weather situations, I use ZoneWatch Radar for live observation videos and reels. You've seen them. It's NextRad based. It features the best precipitation type depiction I know of. In addition to past and present radar, I can view future models like the GFS, Canadian, even the Euro, through the future simulated radar and many other parameters. ZoneWatch is launching ZW Cast in the next few weeks, which features physics-aware forecasting 60% more accurate than NOAA-HER model. I'll put a link in the description if you want to sign up for ZoneWatch with a free trial. And now on to our weather video. All right, good Friday night to everyone. We are another day closer to this major winter storm that has been brewing. And this is a quick 500 millibar look. I just want to highlight a few things. Here's sort of our Pacific vort, right, that came off from this way. And here is our polar vort, right? Now these two are going to merge in and phase, right? So we can actually rock forward in time and show that. They're together right about there. You see this ridge build right here? That's what forces this to deepen. And then ultimately we get to about here. And we'll go back a little further. Get to here and the upper low closes off, right? So that's a closed off upper low. And our surface low is going to come up like this and get yanked in by that upper low and then go out a little bit like that. So that little delay right there, surface low starts at about 1,006 millibars, right? Deepens to maybe 1,000 here. It would have deepened to like 990 here and 980 here, but because it slows and is stalled and yanked back retrograde a little bit, it still deepens during that slowdown. So you end up getting like a 980, 985 here instead of way out here. And that's when the low is in this position. That's when it's going to throw a rather large precipitation shield over most of New Jersey Sunday into Monday. So there's going to be 3 phases of this storm. These larger storms, I don't know if you realize, I like to break them down into 3 stages because there really is like the arrival beginning stage, the hardest part of the storm in the middle, and then the third chapter, right, the last phase, where things wrap up, but it kind of becomes the most cold. So let's start with phase 1. Now, some model guidance is suggesting a snow rain situation on Sunday when precipitation begins. So it's very important to know that if you wake up in South Jersey Sunday and you see a little bit of rain, it's maybe like 35, 36 degrees, that's expected, okay? Because the high temperatures for Sunday are expected to be in anywhere from 36 if you're held down, possibly up as high as 42, 43, 44 during, early afternoon, during the peak warmest part of the day on Sunday. And that's enough to change snow falling into rain and to fall as rain for South Jersey. I'll show you this on the European model in a little bit. It's less prominent on the GFS, but it is still showing on the Euro and a few others. So phase 1 is when sort of lighter precipitation breaks out, possibly as rain for South Jersey and snow for North Jersey, just light, maybe becoming moderate. I could start as early as like 6 or 7 a.m., but then you get to about 5 p.m., 6 p.m. with sunset, and that's when temps are really going to drop, below freezing, and everyone goes over to snow. There's 2 cooling processes involved. One is evaporational cooling, where the atmosphere is going to saturate when it starts precipitating. and the dew point and the temperature will go towards each other. So you have a dew point coming up as the temperature falls. So that initial precipitation is enough to take us from like the lower 40s, maybe down to the mid to upper 30s. So maybe we're dealing with like a mid to upper 30s rain in South Jersey on Sunday, the first part of the day. So that's the evaporational, cooling. Then you have the adiabatic cooling, which is a result of rapid pressure drops. So, when that upper low gets nearby, when that coastal surface low drops below 990 millibars, that's gonna create its own cold just by pressure, just by the expansion and the pressure drop. Right, it's an adiabatic process. And then you have dynamic cooling, where the precipitation brings that cold down to the surface. So that's all going to happen very, very rapidly, Sunday evening around 5 or 6 p.m. So that's when conditions are going to rapidly deteriorate after that point. But until that point, Sunday morning until 5 or 6 p.m., Sunday night around sunset, we could see some rain in South Jersey and lighter snow in North Jersey to kick off phase 1. So phase 2 will begin then right around that 6 p.m. mark. And that's when the low will drop in pressure and really pick up the winds. The precipitation shield will really saturate, and it's just going to crank snow and wind from like 6 p.m. Maybe all the way to noon on Monday, maybe a little earlier, who knows. But that's going to be phase 2, is the hardest snow, the highest winds, and the highest tide of concern, which is about midnight Sunday night, into Monday morning. We'll talk about coastal flooding in a little bit. And phase 3 is the wrap up. Now that, anywhere from morning to noonish on Monday, you're going to have the precipitation shield. The winds are going to change out of the north. You'll be on the backside of the storm system. And that's when temperatures really drop. If you were snowing at 27, 28 degrees during phase 2, you might be snowing at 23, 24 degrees in that final phase for the last few snow bands that perform. And they're going to be at a higher snow ratio. We expect snow ratios to be around 12 to 1 average throughout this storm. But at the very end of that storm, when you have north winds, you might be looking at more of a 15 to 1 situation. So maybe you're 10 to 1 to start, 12 to 1 phase 2, and 15 to 1 phase 3. That sort of thing. So those are the 3 phases. Now, as far as the models, there is a lot of confusion online, and I understand why. Right, the GFS it's done something remarkable. This is maybe the 12th run in a row where it has shown a crippling storm for the state of New Jersey, and it's just hard to ignore that type of consistency in any model. It was obviously handling the upper level pattern better. It was handling the progressive pattern better. It just had a much better handle on things. And this is it. It refuses to back down. So to recap those phases, here's phase 1. You see a little bit of green in there in New Jersey when precipitation first breaks out between like 12Z and 7Z. So that's like 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Sunday, right? A little bit of rain there in Southeast Jersey, not much. The GFS is the coldest here. It quickly goes over to snow. So this is sort of phase 1, right? Phase 2 is here when you're in the middle. You have the low is tucked closest to the coast. You have the most ripping winds off the ocean. If you're going to see a blizzard on the coastal Jersey area, it's going to be during phase 2, and it's going to be late Sunday night, early Monday morning. And then here's that backside that I'm talking about. Once this low gets up to Jersey latitude, right, offshore, that means these winds are coming around this way. It's going to be out of the north. So this is where you typically get like a deformation band, and snow can really stack up at that point because it's fluffier, it's a higher ratio, it stacks higher. And then this thing finally pulls out of here. I mean, those are very slow tapering showers there all the way into early Tuesday a.m., maybe late Monday night. So the GFS is the longest storm. It starts early Sunday and ends late Monday. Just an absolute monster. So, the European, the Canadian, the UK, you name it, they were all missing out to sea 2 days ago, even some as recent as yesterday. But if you look at the Canadian today, we'll look at the RGEM. That's not a miss. That's not a miss out to sea. Okay, we'll look at the longer range operational Canadian. Yeah, that's not a miss out to sea. This is all 18Z. Actually, this is the 12Z Canadian. Let's look at the 18Z Euro even. Okay, here's the Euro. Remember that? Remember the Euro is the furthest out to sea? No, sorry. That's trended west towards the GFS. Not as much as the GFS, but solid steps towards it. And that's what's happened today. Everything has trended to the towards the GFS and what we know as a cave. The models have caved to the most consistently modeled solution. And that's where we are today. Now we can look at the NAM, which is just, I don't know if I've ever seen snow models like on the NAM. And we'll zoom in here. It's just a really concentrated area. The low gets down to 971 and it just absolutely bombs out. It absolutely bombs out. If you look at the thumbnail of this video tonight, you'll see about how I felt when I first saw the NAM, because this is just outrageous. Okay, this is statewide. Dude, where is my car? Right? No meteorologist or forecaster would ever in their right mind call for 24 to 36 for the entire state of New Jersey. You just can't do that. I'm sorry. But wow, I mean, this is just wow. And the GFS snow map is not much different. It's like 16 to maybe 28 throughout the whole state of New Jersey. So I don't know about these crazy GFS NAM solutions, right? It's certainly more than what our first call snow map was today. So we put our map in a position today where, let's say, the NAM and the GFS backs off on this crazy idea, right? It only maybe brings like a major snowstorm to like the lower 2/3 of Jersey and still a solid, significant to major storm for North Jersey. That's what our map is saying today. So our map allows this to calm down a little bit tomorrow, but it also allows, if you look at the snowfall output of the Canadian, it's still pretty far east, right? And the Canadian's we're kind of thinking it's lost. We don't know what it's doing, but it's been coming west. I could tell you that much. If you look at the last 4 runs, let's see if I can create one of these animation images for the last 4 runs of the Canadian. See how it's been coming in? So it's moving west. And if you look at the ensemble members of the Canadian, I mean, it's even further west. So it's really not done moving in. This looks more closer to our map here once the Canadian trends to where we think it's going to trend to. And the same thing goes for the European. If you look at the European ensembles, I mean, it's a total cave job. Total cave job. So our map allows for the crazy NAM and GFS to sort of back down a little bit. And it allows for the Canadian and the Euro, which are still the furthest east, to come a little bit west towards the middle. That's what we're hoping for tomorrow, so that we don't have to make too much of a change on our snow map tomorrow. I will tell you this, though, if the GFS and NAM hold and the other models start bumping up to those levels, we will have to increase our map. Our map is the most aggressive map out there today. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know if it's because the National Weather Service map only goes until 7 a.m. Monday morning, and that's why the amounts are lower. And then all the network meteorologists who regurgitate that National Weather Service information just regurgitated that. So I'm seeing maps out there to have like 3 to 6 inches in New Jersey, and I'm just like, I think it's a little outdated here. The latest and freshest data indicates a major cave job to the GFS. So that's where we're at today. I'll show my map in a little bit. Ways this can go wrong, okay? Because right now there's a lot of support for how we can get a big snowstorm, but how can this go wrong? Well, for one, there's that initial rain on Sunday. And let's show the European for that. So here's the start on the European. See how warm that is? You're talking about 35 to like 43 degrees, anywhere in that range for South Jersey to start with the European model. And again, there'll be some evaporational cooling where the precipitation saturates the air and brings the temperature down. But it's really not until that low gets cranking and watch right over the snow. So you start with that rain, you go right over to snow. So if there's a little more rain in the front of this on Sunday, that could take a few inches off of accumulations at the end of the day. Nothing that's going to hurt a 37-inch accumulation if the NAM or the GFS are right. But, still, you end up with 12 instead of 15 or something like that because of rain. That's one way it could go wrong. I'm more concerned about another thing. So if you look here, I'm going to outline right here. There still is an inverted trough right there in the European model. And then you have the incredible lifting that's coming around here like this. So, here you have heavy snowfall. Here you have heavy snowfall, but this creates this V of subsidence here. Subsidence is sinking air because the air is going to be lifting so rapidly in this coastal precipitation shield. It's going to be lifting very rapidly along this inverted trough. So the air has to spill and fall and go down in this middle area here. So this little wedge, this V of subsidence, could hurt somebody in right now we think it's going to be more of like a northern PA, central PA thing. Maybe that drifts a little closer into EPA, maybe even some of Northwest Jersey. Who knows? But this thing could be floating around in a random sea of chaos here. That's just another way that it could go wrong. We will be able to identify that in the middle of the storm. We just can't predict it right now due to how uncertain the nature of an inverted trough is. And speaking of uncertainty, it's not just the inverted trough we're dealing with here. We're also dealing with a phase. So let's step up to cyclonic vorticity. So yeah, here you see where this low close off way back here in like West Virginia. Let's say here's where it's closing off, right? Let's say it closes off like here. That would allow the surface low to get way out here and before it's captured and really not impact much at all. You really want that low to be captured around here so that it takes a track like this and goes off to give us the storm. So you could have a late capture. So just to quickly recap the three ways that, I've been looking every way how this could go wrong. One, a little more rain in South Jersey to begin on Sunday, which could take off negligible amounts of snow accumulation because the bigger storm is coming later Sunday night, Monday. Two is that V subsidence zone. Is three is the timing of the phase. So just some wild cards about how it could go wrong. It could phase earlier and the surface low could stall more, and then we'd end up like the GFS or NAM. That's a way that it can go wrong the other way, But again, our snow map's sort of in the middle there, leaning towards the GFS. It allows for some correction tomorrow. So let's talk wind. Now, this is the GFS wind model because it's the. I'll show you the GFS because it has the low closest to the coast, and then we'll look at something like the Canadian where it's a little further away. So these are sustained winds, not gusts, sustained. So you're talking about 43, see that little number there on the coast, 43, 47, 44. That's above 35 miles an hour for more than 3 hours. That meets blizzard criteria for wind. Now, if visibility reduces below a quarter mile and the snow's blowing, you have blizzard conditions being met along the immediate coast of Jersey. I'm not sure about inland because you're still only in the 20s there for sustained winds, right? But here's where the low is super, super close, right? It's early Monday morning is when it looks like the low will be here. We're talking like 1 to 3 or 4 a.m. Monday morning when that low will be closest to the coast, generating sustained winds of 40 to 47 here on the GFS. We look at wind gust, maximum gust. I mean, there's a 65er. So it could be rocking on the coast there. Gusts to 60, 65 miles an hour if the GFS solution were to verify. Let's back up to sustained winds, though, and let's go look at something like the Canadian. Sorry, I exited out of there. We'll do it this way. So Canadian sustained winds, we have The low a little bit further offshore here. So, I mean, that says 32 there as a sustained gust. You know what? The top down to the RGEM resolution of the Canadian, a little bit more higher res. So you're still dealing with like 30 to 40 mile an hour sustained, and then we go up to gusts as a 50-mile-an-hour gust right there. Um, so winds could gust on the coast anywhere from 50 to 60, 65 miles an hour from this storm, and that's enough to down tree limbs, power wires, especially if there's a heavier, wetter snow that's stacking up and adding additional weight to a tree limb or a power line that's about to come down or something like that. So expect power outages with this. Absolutely expect power outages, especially in the higher wind areas along the coast. I mean, look, it's going to be windy for the whole state, but it's going to be the most windy along the coast. Coastal flooding. Let's talk about coastal flooding. So this is the Stevens Flood Advisory System. And there's three high tides of concern. The first one's Sunday around noon. The third one is Monday around noon. And they're not that crazy. Minor, high end of minor, it looks like. This middle one that occurs around midnight Sunday night, though, into Monday morning, that's going to be the one where the storm surge peaks. You can see this storm surge down here, right? It's the highest storm surge, and therefore that gets stacked on top of astronomical tides. That has the mean of this just into low end of major flooding. So we're gonna have to watch that coastal flooding. The good news is that you don't have a new moon or a full moon. We have a waxing gibbous moon or waxing crescent, so we'll be somewhat okay from the moon phase. Number two, we don't have a lot of heavy rainfall that's draining into the bays and estuaries and creeks and stuff like that with no place to drain. We're going to have mostly snowfall outside of just a very light rain accumulation Sunday morning. It's going to be mostly snow, so you won't have that. But you will have that wind-driven surge for a period, and it looks like the high tide that occurs late Sunday night into Monday morning, right around midnight, it's going to be the one to watch. So again, let's go over timing. I want to make sure everyone's okay on timing. We will do like this. All right, so first of all, here's that system moving off that ran by our north. Some light wintry mix happened today in North Jersey, but for the most part, we had a nice rain melting our snow. It's kind of relaxing today. I was I had the windows cracked, listening to the rain. That type of stuff just washes anxiety away from me. But anyway, that's moving out. We're gonna have a dry Saturday. So Saturday's going to be your last day to do what you got to do, make your preparations, grocery shopping, all that fun stuff. If you've waited until Saturday, I'm empathetic for you for what you might have to deal with at the stores. People are going to be crazy out and about because this is really going to hit the news hard tomorrow. Anyway, here's your timing. Sunday morning. Between 12Z and 15Z. So you're talking like 7 a.m., 10 a.m. precipitation kind of is in the process of breaking out. Maybe as some rain for South Jersey, but as snow for North Jersey. And it's light. It's very light to start, and it only becomes moderate a little bit later once you get to like 21Z. That's 5 p.m., right? So 5 p.m. is our kickoff of phase 2, when the light precipitation becomes heavy precipitation, when the winds start picking up. That's how you'll know phase 2 begins. Sunday night around 5, 6 p.m. is what we think. And then it just cranks hard overnight until about here. It tapers off between noon and 5 p.m. it looks like on the GFS, with maybe some lingering flurries later into the evening. So I hope we've covered everything that we have to tonight. I know these are longer videos than I normally do, but there's a lot to cover here. Very complex system, a lot of moving parts that have to come together just right. But if it does so, we're in for a kaboom, and that's where I'm leaning currently. So I'm Jonathan Carr. Everyone have a great rest of your Friday night. We'll have a revised forecast out tomorrow, regular public timing, either 4 or 5 p.m., but we'll have it earlier in Kaboom Club. Thank you, everyone, for joining Kaboom Club, by the way. wow, there's so many people in there now, and everybody seems to be appreciating it. So I'm glad that you're finding value in that. But yeah, everyone have a great rest of your Friday night, and please be safe.